Hey guys, so today I am going to be doing the next part of my postpartum recovery kind of series of videos. So in this video I'm going to be talking about breastfeeding. So if you guys would like to see how my experience has been, how that's been going so far, then just keep on watching. What? So I've been breastfeeding her for 8.5 weeks now, and as of right now it's doing pretty good. I guess I'll kind of start at the beginning. So in my labor and delivery video I did say that we kind of immediately started breastfeeding in the hospital. I wasn't producing any milk yet, but just kind of getting her used to it and getting my boobs used to it. The way that she set me up was in a football hold, and if you don't know what a football hold is, it's basically like, well, when she was small enough, she would kind of be laying with her belly on my arm and her head would be in my hand. And I would kind of put her right here and like bring the back of her head up and bring her mouth to my boob. So I think that was probably the easiest way, I guess, starting out to get like a good latch on, because you want to make sure that she thinks I'm talking to her. You want to make sure that your baby's whole mouth is covering your areola. It doesn't have to cover the whole thing, especially if you have bigger ones. My boobs definitely changed during pregnancy, and then even more so after I had her. Something that I noticed pretty much right away is that she has a really good sucking reflex. I was pretty much just doing that football hold most of the time, and then I did kind of try to switch it up a little bit when I was in the hospital and try different holds and stuff like that. So my milk didn't come in when we were at the hospital. It didn't come in until a couple days after we got home. But while we were in the hospital, I did notice that she was getting like a little bit of a shallow latch. I would find that it would be like when she started out, she would be latched on pretty well, and then like as time went on, she would maybe get tired and slide back. So there was a lactation consultant at the hospital, so she came in and kind of helped me get her latched on and told me some things that I can do to make sure that she's latched on and not let her get used to latching on the wrong way. Like I said, the first like 2 days or so when we were at home, it wasn't really bad. I was feeding her every 2 hours, like on the dot, and in the hospital, we did get a little sheet to write down and keep track of like when I would be feeding her and stuff. And I was pretty much doing it every 2 hours on the dot, 10 to 15 minutes on each side. I think I kept doing that when we got home until my milk came in. So I had heard so many people talking about like what it's like when your milk comes in, what it's like feeling engorged and stuff like that, but you don't really know until it happens. Basically, whoa, uh-oh, did you knock it down? She's playing with this in this little bouncy seat, and she knocked down the toy. What, puppy? Wanna play same with mama? Her hair looks crazy right now, and she's like, I call her bubbly because she is always blowing spit bubbles. You're not gonna look at the camera? Huh? She's like, what the F? When your milk comes in, it's not like your boobs are swollen, because they're not soft. What are they doing outside? They're like doing construction or something outside, so I'm sorry if you can hear that, but they were just really hard, just like hard as rocks, and it is literally the most uncomfortable feeling. For me personally, I've always had smaller boobs. Probably the biggest boobs I've ever had in my life have been like 36B. That first probably like week or two of my milk coming in and just not knowing what was really going on. I mean, I knew what was going on, but I just didn't know how to deal with it. It was really painful. It was really, really painful. And I think at one point I did end up getting like a clogged duct. And I did end up calling a lactation consultant. There's a breastfeeding hotline that the hospital gave me. They gave me a whole sheet of like breastfeeding resources, which was seriously amazing. But the hotline, I think it's like worldwide, and it's like 24 hours. It was so awesome. The lady was so nice and so amazing. It wasn't just me being engorged that was an issue. So that was like at first when I first started breastfeeding. And what I did to relieve that was just in the shower, I would massage my breast because it just would get so full. I always heard that, you know, even before you start breastfeeding, you can kind of rub a washcloth on them to kind of help roughen them up and get used to it. But I didn't realize like how brutal it could be. And I'm not trying to scare anybody like out of breastfeeding or anything, because honestly, I love breastfeeding, and the reason why I have kept going is because I do love it, and I do know that it has so many benefits. But I'm not gonna lie, there definitely, during these times where things have been hard, I have definitely thought about pumping, or I've never really thought about formula, mainly just pumping. I don't know if it's just her, but she's really strong. She's always been really strong. What I noticed was that pieces of my nipple were coming off. Not like huge chunks or anything, just like little pieces of the skin were coming off. Like they would just be hanging by a little, sounds really gross, but it would just be like hanging by a little piece of skin, and I could just like pull it off. And then they were really raw. So it got to the point where they're just really like raw, stinging, inflamed, like right at the tip of my nipple. It was just really painful every time I'd have to feed her. Like I would dread every time I had to feed her. I think a part of the whole engorgement thing was that I had pretty overactive letdown, which means that just it would come out really fast, more so on one side than the other one, because so many times I've squirted her in the face. So I think the overactive letdown in turn made her kind of clamp down on my nipple, and trust me, it's just as painful as it sounds. So she would do that, and then she would kind of pull on it, and I just think my nipples just obviously weren't used to it, and they needed to get used to it, huh? I ended up ordering online some lanolin cream and a nipple shield, because especially for my right nipple, that was the main one that was having the issue, and that has continuously always had issues during these last 2 months. I got a nipple shield to maybe help like heal it a little bit, because I felt like every time I would feed her, it would just be more painful, and it got to the point where I was just feeding her like on one side and then occasionally feeding her on the right side, and then that made me have a clogged duct. I called the breastfeeding hotline, and she told me some things that I could do, especially when it comes to like when it came to improving her latch, and when she would do the thing like sliding back. So she said I could kind of do like a bear hug type of thing and pull her closer, like whenever she'd try to pull back, which she hates. Here's something about her. I am gonna do a baby update for like the last 2 months. She absolutely hates it. Like what I'm doing right now, like she's I feel like she's about to start crying, because she does not like it when you hold her head. Like if you're holding her on your chest like this, she's not doing it right now because she's tired, and of course babies never do things when you want them to do them. And she would be like trying to lift up her head. So she's always had a really strong neck, really strong legs. Put my finger in the corner of her mouth to break the suction, then relatch her on until it didn't hurt, because breastfeeding isn't supposed to hurt. I think definitely during that first week or so of your nipples getting used to you know, the whole action of a tiny baby sucking on your nipple. And I think that's the thing too, is that when I was pregnant, I think I mentioned it in a pregnancy update, I swear she was sucking her thumb, and she has even started trying to suck on her thumb. She more so sucks on her fist. Sometimes she can get her thumb out. She's still doing it, and she's been doing it since she's been born. She's been trying to like put her hands in her mouth, put her fingers in her mouth. Definitely the breastfeeding hotline helped a lot, and I definitely suggest that if you're having any issues with breastfeeding, to call a hotline or meet with a lactation consultant. Definitely take advantage of lactation consultants in the hospital if you have them in your hospital after you give birth. And if you have anything like that just doesn't feel right, if anything hurts at all, tell them at the hospital while you can, because I mean, you can definitely call afterwards, but it's just a lot more difficult, especially with like getting used to being at home with a baby and stuff. She told me to put breast milk on my nipple and let it dry, because there are like kind of healing properties, I guess, in breast milk. And then also to put coconut oil on them because it has antibacterial properties. And then also use the lanolin too. I was doing that kind of in between especially before I went into the shower, because it was so painful when I'd take a shower and it would just be like water beating on my raw nipples. Up until probably like a week or two ago, breastfeeding has been great. It has been great, other than feeling like I do have a little bit of overactive letdown. There was about a week where I was breastfeeding more on demand. Well, actually, it's probably a little bit more than a week. I was breastfeeding her on demand kind of whenever she wanted to, but I find that she would be spitting up a lot, and she never spit up until I did start trying to kind of feed her on demand and let her eat whenever she wanted to. I'm trying to kind of get her on a little bit more of a schedule, so I'm doing every 2 hours. When she unlatches, that's pretty much it, and then she'll eat the next 2 hours. So I'm not like starving her or anything. She's definitely satisfied, she's definitely happy. If she starts crying after I feed her, then I will feed her again or continue feeding her. But I can kind of tell all the signs, like if she's still hungry. Like usually if she's done, she'll be kind of like a limp doll and her hands will be open, and she'll just like start smiling. She can go like 6 hours, up to like 6 hours at a time sleeping at night. So that means that I'm not feeding her during that time. And that means that I will get really full boobs, usually on the side that I didn't last feed her on. I had been waking up at night feeling like really engorged, and I would kind of try to express milk a little bit, like hand express. I just felt like she wasn't really emptying, at least my right side, really properly, or it wasn't feeling like it was getting all of it out. Also, I think that my right breast produces so much more milk than my left one, and what I've been doing to help with that is doing block feeding, so kind of training this boob to not produce as much milk. It's definitely still producing more than the other side, but it's not nearly as much as it was before, to where I couldn't go like 2 hours without feeding her on this side. So basically block feeding is where I will feed her on my left side, then I'll wait 2 hours, feed her on my left side, then another 2 hours, and then I'll feed her on my right side. And I got it backwards because I was feeding her more on this side because it was producing more milk, and I was like, I need to empty it. But what you actually need to do is let it fill up and get it used to not being emptied. Because once it's emptied, then it thinks it needs to produce milk again, and it'll kind of, your baby trains your boobs to produce the milk that the baby needs. So this boob just thought that she needed a lot of milk out of it for some reason. I thought maybe she had thrush, or I had thrush. If you don't know what that is, it's like a yeast infection of the nipple, and also in babies' mouths, and I think it shows up on their bottoms too. But we took her to a doctor and she didn't have thrush, and I don't have any symptoms, but I was just kind of doing some things as like precautionary measures. So I was using coconut oil, which again has antibacterial properties in it, and changing my breast pads often because I have to use breast pads all the time, and letting them breathe, letting them air out. I think also the heat from the summer is brutal in the South, and my boobs have been sweating, and I'm not used to them being this big. Okay, sorry about that. I had to go lay Luna down. I think when it comes to breastfeeding, that's pretty much it. Like I said, as of right now, things have been doing pretty well. So like I said, they did have me start out in the football hold, and I was doing that a lot, but I found that that wasn't really as practical sometimes, especially she's a really wiggly and squirmy little girl. When I first started feeding her, when we came home, when I realized that milk was coming out a little bit too quickly for her, especially when she was that little, she would kind of start choking a little bit. I did try a bunch of different positions, and one of them was that I was laying down and I would kind of let her latch herself on. It's called the breast crawl. It's actually pretty interesting. You should Google it or watch a video. They know where the milk is, and they will kind of crawl themselves. No matter what age they are, they'll make their way to the boob and get what they want. And she definitely does that. So I did that when she was smaller. It's a little bit harder for her to do it now because she gets frustrated really easily if she doesn't get it fast enough. I am planning on breastfeeding her as long as possible. I'm not sure how that's gonna go just because she is doing the whole biting thing, and I've actually had to start telling her to not bite because I feel like she is starting to become more aware of what she's doing, and she'll clamp down and then be kind of like stretching or something and be like pulling on my nipple while she's doing that, which is really, really painful. But yeah, I am planning on breastfeeding her as long as possible. Hopefully until like, I think probably the longest would be like 1.5. If you guys have any questions or anything as far as breastfeeding and my experience or anything like that, definitely leave that down below. There are definitely things that I did not know about before I started breastfeeding. A book that I do want to recommend, and I'll put the link to the hotline down below, and also a breastfeeding website down below, and then also this book, which is The Womanly Art of Breastfeeding. I did start reading that before I had her, but it's a really, really helpful resource to read if you're having any issues or if you have any questions or anything like that. It pretty much is like the Bible of breastfeeding. That's pretty much it. If you guys are having like any issues with breastfeeding or you're feeling discouraged or anything, don't give up. Please, it is so worth it. And honestly, I love breastfeeding. It's such like it's such a bonding experience. Obviously I gave birth to her, but being able to be her source of nourishment is a great feeling, honestly, and it's cheap. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys would like to see more about my whole recovery experience, I will be making more videos, so look forward to that. I will see you guys in my next video, and I love you.